The WWE has never been hotter. It was a major retribution from a horrendous late 2010s run of the WWE that culminated in the worst WWEs of all time. Now, the WWE had legit superstars partaking in much better storylines. The WWE has never felt this big for a long time. We got Cody Rhodes, CM Punk, Seth Rollins, Roman Reigns, Gunther, Rhea Ripley, and Jade Cargill. The star power is immense. Not to mention young studs like Braun Breaker and Tiffany Stratton. It's a good time to be a WWE fan. And all of this is thanks to the masterful reigning Booker of the Year, the WWE's Chief Content Officer, Paul Triple H Levesque. And it was a relief that Vince McMahon was relieved in the WWE. This is indeed a new era, and I can't wait to see this exciting Paul Triple H Levesque era. But there is still one carryover from Vince's reign that is actually quite good for business. You can just tell when Cody Rhodes called him out to the ring right after winning the undisputed WWE title. Bruce Pritchard is still the guy running the show in the WWE. Yeah, that's right, the executive director of both Raw and SmackDown is none other than Brother Love himself, Bruce Pritchard. Wrestling fans might not be familiar with the name Bruce Pritchard, but some of you might recognize him by his in-ring name, Brother Love. Yeah, he's the same manager who introduced The Undertaker to the entire wrestling world. But this guy was around the business way before that. You could say that his entire life revolved around wrestling. At just 10 years old, Bruce Pritchard was selling posters at the Sam Houston Coliseum for Paul Bosch's Houston Wrestling. This guy was so good at selling those posters that he got promoted to assistant director of television at age 12. Yes, 12. And just 2 years after that, at the tender age of 14, Bruce became Houston Wrestling's ring announcer and color commentator as well. Because of Paul Bosch's connection with Bill Watts, the owner of Universal Wrestling Federation, Prichard would then work with the UWF as well. He also became the referee for these two promotions. You can literally see him everywhere. Prichard grew up in the wrestling world, quite literally. But in his mid-20s in 1987, his life took an unexpected turn as Houston Wrestling became defunct and sold its company to, guess who? The World Wrestling Federation. Prichard wouldn't need to look for a job elsewhere because one man definitely saw his potential, the owner of WWF, Vincent Kennedy McMahon. Bruce Prichard signed with the WWF in 1987 as a color commentator, just like his old job. But Vince back then knew he could do something more. So Bruce hit the ring and introduced his whole new persona, Brother Love. And he sure does love to talk, so the WWF decided to give him his own talk show, the Brother Love Show. It's sort of like the father of Miz TV. The difference is that there's one requirement for you to be the guest of the show. You should be hated by an entire arena. Despicable, good-for-nothing heels. You know what else he does? He has the curing powers to do miracles and bring dead people back to life, like how he brought up The Undertaker, the complete opposite of his character, who wears a bright red and white suit. The early 1990s were a different time. While a character such as Brother Love would likely be fine today, he wasn't that over in 1991. In fact, Prichard's character as a smarmy and smug preacher was actually quite controversial, ripping off televangelists of the time. And it didn't help that there were controversial segments, including Love curing a blinded disabled man. Everybody seemed to hate Bruce, except for one man, Vince. The chairman loved his guts. And as time went by, Bruce started working behind the scenes as well. He became part of the creative team, thanks to Vince. But it seems like having two jobs in the same company was too much for Bruce, as he was needed more in the backstage area due to his role as creative. Vince then gave Bruce the privilege to choose what he wanted to do with the company, to be Brother Love and manage The Undertaker, or to be a full-time creative producer. And Bruce loved to work behind the cameras rather than being Brother Love, so the vacant position of manager of The Undertaker fell in the lap of Paul Bearer, and we all know how great that worked out. Working backstage wasn't as easy as it seemed for Prichard, as his erratic personality made him clash heads with other big names in the company, especially WWE former executive John Filippelli. So, he was fired from the WWE after just 4 years. It was apparent at that time that he would not return to the company, but a near-death moment changed everything. Bruce called the only person who adored him, Vince, and told him about his near life-ending experience. Of course, McMahon, with his soft spot for Bruce, called him back, offered him a job once again in the creative, and even gave him the luxury that he would only need to talk to Vince and Pat Patterson, since many staff in the background hated his antics. The second stint would last much longer for Bruce, as he loved the setup that he was only going to report to Vince. This made him Vince's right-hand man, making him one of the most powerful personalities in the company who was not a McMahon. And yeah, he would occasionally come back in the ring as Brother Love whenever he felt like it, or when there was a storyline that warranted him in it. He would stay with the company until 2008, working directly under Vince. Many reports said that Prichard didn't have a great relationship with people backstage, but as Vince's right-hand man, he became untouchable, until he clashed heads with another McMahon, Stephanie. There was also an incident where he brought a gun to the workplace, which ticked off some of the higher-ups, especially Stephanie, who asked him to leave, and some days later, he was fired. Prichard would then take his problematic talents to various promotions, such as TNA and Major League Wrestling. In 2018, a decade after he was relieved in the WWE, Prichard would make a one-off appearance as Brother Love on the WWE Raw 25 Years Anniversary Special. And it seemed like he had patched things up with some of the higher-ups in the WWE, or at least just with Vince, as 1 year later, he was rehired by the company as part of the creative team. Just a month later, he was promoted to WWE's Senior Vice President. Just like that. And when Eric Bischoff and Paul Heyman were both relieved of their duties as executive directors of both Raw and SmackDown, Prichard assumed the role and had control over the two shows. Just imagine the power he had in the WWE, all thanks to Vince, who gave him all of the chances in the world. Creatively, it was also reported that everything flowed through Prichard, and his word had been described as very much the gospel for Vince McMahon. Prichard spent years on top of the WWE, especially because of Vince. But then, a huge controversy struck. And you know what that is. Those horrific Vince McMahon allegations. And what's most concerning were the people involved in the allegations, including Vince's known other right-hand man, John Laurinaitis, and Vince's most prized wrestler, Brock Lesnar. Another one that was close to Vince was former executive producer Kevin Dunn, who also left the company at the end of 2023. Now, the only person left in the company who has a tight connection with the former boss is also one of the most powerful, Bruce Pritchard. One former champion, Ronda Rousey, publicly called out Prichard. Bruce Pritchard is basically Vince's avatar. If he's still around, Vince still has a hand in running the business. Vince was still running things through Bruce when he was gone. Bruce literally owed everything he is right now to Vince. And with a relationship that goes way back to almost 30 years, it's not a long shot to call Bruce Pritchard Vince McMahon's puppet. With that long-standing relationship, it's almost impossible to think that Bruce was not aware of the allegations against Vince. And some might even speculate that he was directly involved. Right now, Bruce Pritchard is still one of the top guys in the WWE, working as an executive director under Triple H. So why hasn't he been fired yet? Well, reports say that WWE has been making changes very slowly, and it was really just a matter of time before Bruce was going to be relieved of his duties. But as things stand, Bruce still has a lot of power in the company, and that means so does Vince. And just when you thought we had gotten rid of all of Vince's cronies, there's still one man left. And as long as he's still in the company, Vince will always have a hand on the wheel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.